Welcome to Part 7, the final chapter of our tour of the Grateful Dead concert poster exhibition running at the Narrow Center in Fall River, Massachusetts through April 1, 2023. This 1985 Northeast Tour poster was made by a fan, Byron Irwin, and sold in the parking lot, no doubt. It's a fun piece, echoing the Dead set artwork connecting San Francisco and New York. But the list of cities has a few homemade inconsistencies, including a misspelled Nassau and an erased OR following Portland, because the show, of course, was in Portland, Maine. This is the first in a pair of posters for Boreal Ridge at Donner Summit in Tahoe, August 1985. This was billed as the highest Grateful Dead concert ever, but it was plagued by equipment troubles and was rather universally regarded as a terrible show, but a great time had by all. Certainly, that was true in my case. This poster was made by our Grass Valley artist, Armando Busek. The Dead aimed to fix the previous year's sound problems with these dates at Boreal in August 1986, but Jerry fell into a coma and the show had to be canceled. Fortunately, he was back singing I Will Survive at the Oakland Coliseum by mid-December. Bob Dylan and the Dead went on their historic 6-date summer tour in July 1987. Only one venue created a poster for the event, and that naturally would be the San Francisco Bay Area. Designed by Arlene Owseichik, art director at Bill Graham Presents, it features another photo by, you guessed it, Herb Green. Bill Graham had a house in Telluride, and the town board and citizens trusted him to manage these epic shows during their harmonic convergence in 1987. The poster is a mock-up of the famous photo of Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch as skeletons. Butch Cassidy became an outlaw in Telluride, robbing his first bank there in 1889. Artist Steve Johansson explains how this poster came to be, saying, as one of the few rock artists in the area and a Deadhead myself, I felt that there just had to be a poster, and it didn't seem like anyone was doing one. I decided to draw this one up and print it myself to get it out to area music stores or appropriate outlets to let folks know about the show. This poster has been reprinted several times, but the ones with the white background behind the Outlaws, like this one, are the first printings. Philadelphia played an important role in the national importance of the Grateful Dead, and yet New York tends to swallow up most of the East Coast history of the band. Let's start with this stat. The Dead played at Madison Square Garden 52 times, which ranks 6th as the band's most played venue. All others in the top 5 are in the San Francisco Bay Area, except one, the Spectrum, at 53 shows. Garnish your next cheesesteak with that. The concert on the 23rd featured the last of the Dead's 5 known performances of La Bamba, and this very cool artwork was created by Hugh Brown. The art was also used for Oakland Coliseum shows for the 1987 New Year's shows. Peter Max was one of the most famous pop artists to come out of the late 1960s, but he was based in New York and didn't do concert posters. The Grateful Dead commissioned Peter Max to create this 1988 spring tour poster, and it displays that continuous reimagination of how one might publicize and express the Grateful Dead visually. This eye-popping poster for shows at the Centrum in Worcester in April 1988 was printed slightly off-register deliberately to give the vibrant magenta and cyan blue colors a 3D effect. The artist, George Sargent, told me that he was paying homage to the Stanley Mouse and Alton Kelly poster called Elephants that came enclosed inside early copies of the Grateful Dead's first album. Additionally, the central Old World image is another Edward Sullivan drawing from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam that Mouse and Kelly used in the famous Skeleton and Roses poster. It's one of the more unusual Dead posters from the 1980s, and it would not look out of place in a collection of 1960s psychedelic rock posters. This epic series of 9 shows in September 1988 topped the Dead's previous record in New York, the 8 shows at Radio City in October 1980. The longest run of shows in Grateful Dead history were the 15 Warfield Theater shows in San Francisco in 1980. The Dead duplicated their 9-show run at the Garden again in 1991. Art here is by Barry Jackson. The Dead closed the 9 shows at Madison Square Garden with a rare benefit performance to save the world's tropical rainforest, with proceeds donated to Greenpeace, Cultural Survival, and the Rainforest Action Network. Other guests that night included Mick Taylor from the Rolling Stones, Daryl Hall and John Oates, and Jack Cassidy from Hot Tuna. The art here was by famous pop artist Robert Rauschenburg. The Grateful Dead poster for New Year's 1988, but instead of the band, it features Bill Graham, dressed in his traditional New Year's costume as Father Time. For many years, Graham would ride through the crowd as the clock ticked down on a giant joint, or atop a 3-story cake, or on a giant mushroom, or in this case, on a giant mirrored ball. At midnight, the house lights went up as thousands of balloons dropped from the rafters. The Dead, this year joined by Clarence Clemens, broke into Sugar Magnolia as the crowd went wild. Artwork by Arlene Owseichik. This design began life originally as Rick Griffin's favorite front cover concept for the Without a Net live album, released in 1990. This German poster advertised the October 1990 appearance of the band at the International Congress Hall in Berlin, and also pushed the CD. Things started changing for the Dead in 1987 when the In the Dark album went mainstream. The traveling fan caravan was re-energized with a younger audience that romanticized the hippie era, and the following swelled until the Dead became a stadium act. Bill Graham came to Vegas to see Frank Sinatra and wondered how many Deadheads would visit Las Vegas. The challenge was to play Vegas and make it fit within the Grateful Dead experience. The Silver Bowl was outside of the city, and so it allowed the bands to play in a less stultifying environment than in a casino amphitheater. These shows with Santana were in April 1991, and the Dead would wind up playing the Silver Bowl 13 more times before the end. Artwork here is by Elsa Booman and also features a black and white X-ray version of the front side of the poster on the reverse. Penultimately, we have this sweet little Mardi Gras piece from 1995. Art is by Troy Alders. The Dead started playing their Mardi Gras shows at the Henry J. Kaiser Auditorium in Oakland, California back in February 1986. Mardi Gras shows always included a parade with giant costumes and New Orleans-themed decorations, and sometimes even musicians from NOLA, like the Neville Brothers. Since this was 1995, it would be the last of these fun shows. Finally, we included at the entrance to the exhibition a stunning silkscreen of the famous Skeleton and Roses image by Stanley Mouse done in 1998. It's the only piece that is not a concert or tour poster, but somehow it just seemed right. I hope you enjoyed our tour, and I hope you will follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Bar Gallery and visit us someday in Oyster Bay. The exhibition runs at the Narrows through April 1st. If you enjoyed this walk through the exhibition and the history of the psychedelic poster, I invite you to join our mailing list to receive what should be a monthly newsletter. It never seems to come out quite that often, but just send me an email and let me know your whereabouts, and I'll put you on the list. As they used to say, thank you and stay in touch.